left hand. Three, all stand up, please. We just stretch. Just stretch. And if you can touch your toes. You can try and touch your toes. Okay, let's sit down. Okay, thank you very much. I will take you through values and principles, and as MC has indicated, I will try to be fast in view of tomorrow being holiday. But I will not lose the content which is expected of us as members of the board. The objectives of this session, of this induction, is one, I will briefly take you through the highlights of the functions of the Public Service Commission in context of values and principles. Then we will appreciate the constitutional values and principles, and explain to you some of the strategies used to promote values and principles, and explain to you the implementation of constitutional values and principles in the public service, including issues of declaration of income, assets, and liabilities. Then we'll see what the role of the Board of Directors is in values and principles. So, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, when the Commission was launching the Public Service internship program and the values report, the President made an announcement. How many of us were in that function? Yes, one of the announcements that the President made after reading his speech is that the head of public service should write, for those institutions that did not submit their data, the head of public service should write to the CEO of the institution for them to explain the reasons why they did not submit data for purposes of compliance to Article 10 and 232. So that was a very strong statement. I will take you briefly through that evaluation report, and we'll see what we should appreciate. Now, the Public Service Commission is established under Article 233(1) and 2 of the Constitution. It consists of a chairperson, vice chairperson, and 7 other members. Its function is to promote the values and principles in Article 10 and 232, the public service, evaluate and report to the President and Parliament on the extent of compliance to Article 10 and 232 in the public service. These are 2 of the functions of public service which we are going to discuss in this context. There are also other functions which you can make reference to that under Article 234 of the Constitution. Now let me skip this definition of values, you will get them. But why should we have national values? Why should we have national values? About 2 years ago, Singapore declared a surplus budget. Are we aware of that? 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, Singapore declared a surplus budget. So it means that they expended the money, and then there was surplus. So how did they distribute this surplus? The distribution of this surplus was that those whose incomes are high were given a low amount, and those whose incomes were low were given a higher amount. The reason why we take Singapore as a model is because they uphold values and principles. They put values and principles as the apex of anything that they do. So, what are these benefits of values and principles? What are these benefits of values and principles? These values and principles, they define the people's identity. A few years ago, we had Nairobi City Council. This is in public domain. The examples I'll be giving are examples today in the public domain. A few years ago, we had Nairobi City Council. It was awarded an ISO certification, isn't it? Do you remember a few years ago? What was the response of the citizens? There was an uproar, isn't it? There was an uproar, isn't it? Eventually, that ISO certification was withdrawn. The reason why it was withdrawn is the value system of the Nairobi City Council is what people were looking in. The perception people have about the value system at the Nairobi City Council. So if you visit Nairobi City Council, the perception is that of corruption, that one of inefficiency, and the rest. So that's the value system. So the national values defines our people's identity. Values are a prerequisite of good governance. Like the example I've given for Singapore. Because of the put values at the apex of leadership, then there is good governance. And with good governance, there is high quality of life for the people. These values, they have an impact on the pace and direction of national development. And this is why the framers of our Constitution indicated in Article 4.2 that the foundation of this country is based on national values. The foundation of this country is based on national values. Now, this is what I look at values. It is like light, which is illuminating either a society or an organization. So if you put values at the apex, the national values and the values in Article 232, if you put it at the apex of your institution, then it will illuminate that society or that organization. And this is the spirit of Article 4.2 of the Constitution. The legal and policy framework, these are some of the laws that guide and policy framework that guides constitutional values and principles. We have the Constitution, the PSC Act, and in execution of your human resource function at the board, you will be using, in quite a number of cases, you will be using your human resource procedures manual. Some of the human resource procedures manual in organizations are not aligned to the PSC Act and the PSC regulations. So in execution of your work, if there are certain provisions in your human resource procedures manual that is contrary to the PSC Act or the PSC regulations, then the PSC Act and the PSC regulation will supersede those provisions in your human resource procedures manual. Then there is the International Convention, Session Paper number 8 of 2013 on National Values and Principles of Governance. Please get a copy of this document. The reason is because it describes how we can implement these values from the family level, how the state and non-state actors also contribute to the realization of Article 10. This document is also provides for your role as a public officer. You being a member of the board, you are now a public officer. Your role in terms of promoting values. Now, this document it encourages us to be value carriers and value drivers. It tells us that we need to be value carriers and value drivers. So get a copy of this section of paper. It will guide you. Framework for implementation of values and principles. This is a document that was developed by Public Service Commission. It guides us in the evaluation report. Then there's the Public Service Values and Principles Act, PVM Act, and other acts which guide us in constitutional values and principles. There are quite a number of acts. If you read through the framework for implementation of values and principles, a copy of which is available at the PSC, the Public Service Commission website. What are the strategies that the Commission uses or expects organizations to promote values and principles? I'll just go through some of them. One of them is mainstreaming values and principles during interview process. Mainstreaming values during interview process. Since you'll be involved in the interviews of certain levels of officers in the organization, I just want to probe your mind on this. Assuming that you have two candidates. One candidate in the technical competence scores 80%. One candidate in the technical competence scores 80%. And in the integrity issues and values and principles, they score 20. Then another candidate in integrity and values and principles issues, they score 80. And in the technical competence, they score 20. Which candidate do you give the job? Neither. Which candidate do you give the job? Yes, one person? Neither. You must choose. The condition is that you must choose. Which one will you give the job? There? Yes? The second one. But he is technically incompetent. Yes? Yes?
From what you are influencing our thoughts, I'll pick the second one. But knowing you not deliver, if the idea was to get something to deliver. That's why some answers are none.
Well, you must, yes?
Yeah. Values alone will never deliver when you require technical skills. You must have a threshold above which you can be considered.
What I'm saying is that values alone will never deliver when skills are required. And therefore you are asking us an unfair question.
An unfair question. But you're going to meet this in the course of your work. You're going to meet this in the course of your work. What kind of decisions are you going to make? Yes.
Yes, if I must choose one, then obviously I choose the one who has a better value, higher values.
Higher values.
And then organize to train the one who technically is poor, but he has values, and train them on the job until they get it.
Yes, I like this discussion, and we will be having these discussions in your goals. This person who is technically incompetent can be trained. The capacity can be built. But if you take a person who is competent and doesn't have values, assuming this person is a finance officer, no values. And remember the previous speaker, what was saying about accountability. If money is lost in projects that you are approved, who is going to be accountable? Who is going to be accountable at the apex in terms of decision making? The board. Isn't it? You were told by the previous speaker, the board. So, in the values reports that the Commission did almost 2 or 3 years ago, in terms of mainstreaming the interviewing tool during the interviewing tool, mainstreaming values and principles, the interviewing tool, we established that only 3% of public institutions had a component of values and principles in their interviewing tool. About 2 to 3% of public institutions had a component of integrity and values in their interviewing tool. What you have is a biasness towards the technical. I had the benefit of being in China a few years ago, and during the workshop, we were told that a company like Alibaba, for its appraisals and recruitment, it improves 60 to 70% of the marks of the interviewing tool on values. 60 to 70%. These other technicalities can be improved through training. Other ways in which we promote values is through induction programs, like the one that has been organized by SCAC and ICS. So during these induction programs for the newly appointed officers, we incorporate the topics of values and principles in those programs and also code of conduct. Then we also emphasize on continuous sensitization of officers in values and principles. We put aspects of values in IC materials. Then as Public Service Commission, we have endeavored to use annual music festival falls and dramas to promote values. We sponsor a class in which the participants give us certain messages in values and principles. Graffiti in public transport buses. This is an area that we are looking into in terms of graffitis in public transport, having messages on values and principles. So, in-service training programs, any training programs that you have, we mainstream values and principles in those values, skills and plays, terms and conditions of service. What we mean by this, even you as members of the board, you are going to sign a commitment form to the code of conduct, isn't it? Senior, under Mongoso, there is a commitment form. Under Mongoso, if you look at the back, there is a commitment form to the code of conduct. Even for the other public officers, one of the terms and conditions of service in mainstreaming these values is signing and committing to a code of conduct. How do we undertake these values? We have merged these values into thematic areas. The thematic areas, values in Article 10 and 232, we have merged them into thematic areas. We have service delivery improvement, high standards of professional ethics in the public service, good governance, transparency and accountability, performance management, equitable allocation of opportunities and resources, public participation in policy making, efficiency, effectiveness, and economic use of resources in sustainable development. So we have merged Article 10 and 232 and come up with these thematic areas. In each of these thematic areas, there is a standard and a corresponding indicator. So we expect that during the promotion of values and principles in the institution, it is based on these thematic areas. It's based on these thematic areas. Now, when we come to evaluation, when the Commission comes to evaluate, they look at the extent to which you have complied to those standards. I will give an example of equitable allocation of opportunities and resources. In terms of the laws that we have here in equitable, one of the parameters we look for is diversity. And in the context of public service, diversity means three things: gender, ethnicity, and PWDs. Representation of gender, ethnic representation, and PWDs. Now, when we come to evaluate that, for gender, at the global level, for gender, the 2/3 gender rule is achieved. Right? For gender, the 2/3 gender rule is achieved. However, at levels, especially at top management and policy levels, the female gender is disadvantaged. So what we keep on telling the officers is, in future, it is the male gender who will be doing what? will require affirmative action, isn't it? Senior, let's not consider this issue of gender as maneno ya kina mama. In a few years' time, already the boy child is disadvantaged. In a few years' time, these dynamics will change. And the two-third gender rule now will require that it is the male who will require what? Affirmative action. So what do we do in terms of evaluation? We look at the representation of gender at each and every level. And the levels we have are 6, which you can make reference to the framework for implementation of values and principles. We look at those levels, the policy level, we look at the gender representation. If it is not if it is not represented as per the Constitution, we proportionate that. Then we come up with a gender representation of the organization based on the levels. Then we score you on that. When it comes to persons with disability, the Constitution expects that each and every public organization, the representation of PWDs should be 5%. So we consider the number of PWDs you have in your organization and convert it into percentage. Then we proportionate that in terms of scoring. When it comes to ethnic representation, we use the proportionate representation as required by the law, and we use the census of 2019. We'll be using the census of 2019. So we allocate those scores based on those representations that you have. So each and every of this thematic area, there is going to be a standard and there is going to be an indicator. We expect you as members of the board to be the drivers of the implementation of these values and principles so that all these thematic areas are promoted in your organization. Now, we use indices to quantify, to quantitatively measure these progresses. We use indices to quantitatively measure this progress. As per the last year's report, the compliance index of the public service is 41.7. 41.7. So each and every organization will send to you your index with respect to compliance with Article 10 and 232, and we send that information to the CEO for your discussion. Reporting, areas that we report to the President and Parliament, and this is the information we report on, measures taken to promote these values, progress achieved, the challenges faced, and any recommendations. So the reporting, we are guided by these 4 areas. Declaration of income, assets, and liabilities. This is a declaration here. And this issue of declaration is one of the standards that we use in our reporting, especially on good governance. There are 3 types of declarations. This is a declaration here, and there are 3 types of declarations. Members of the Board of Directors, it is the Public Service Commission who is a responsible commission for you. Members of the Board of Directors are public officers. Therefore, you are expected to submit your declaration of income, assets, and liabilities through the CEO to the Public Service Commission. There are 3 types of declarations. There is the initial declaration, which you need to submit within 30 days from your date of appointment. There is the 2-year declaration, which is submitted every 2 years. This one, we expect you to submit them in November and December. In November and December this year. And then, when you exit this the respective organization, you are expected to submit your final declaration within 30 days from the date of exit. This is the situation we've been having before. Members of the board bring their declarations to Public Service Commission. You have your declaration, put it in an envelope, bring it to the Public Service Commission. That is not acceptable. We expect you to submit your declaration through the CEO. We expect you to submit your declaration through your CEO. We don't accept declarations from individuals. We don't accept declarations from individuals. We only accept declarations from institutions. If you have been nominated, or if you are a member of the board, if you are a member of the board, and you work in another public institution, if you are a member of the board and you work in another public institution, the template that we provide the CEO, there is a provision for the CEO to indicate that this is so and so, and they will submit their declaration in the other public institution. But for independent board of directors, you must submit your declaration through the CEO. Public officers who are members of the board but work in other public institutions, you will submit in your parent organization, and the same will be captured in the template that we provide. Now, what is the role of the board of directors in values and principles? One of your roles is to propagate and embody the constitutional values and principles in the organization. Let these values not be for others. Let these values not be for others. These values, it starts with you. So if other members of staff in the institution that you are in see you to be a value carrier and a value driver, they will also follow the same. Some years back, we were told by certain citizens that if their blood is cut, then what will be seen are the pictures of a politician, isn't it? So we would want you that your blood should also be having what? Values. Your blood should be concentrated in the values. So that when you cascade this, you are a value carrier and a value driver. You are a value champion. So as a board of director, you must be a value champion in all that you do. Then you must provide a budget to support the promotion of values and principles in the organization. Then when our values report is released, then you must assess the performance of the institution after the release and come up with strategies of improvement. The other role that you need to play is you need to approve requests for access or declarations of officers within the legal framework. Now, these declarations, they can be accessed. And this access, there is a process. There are certain declarations that are under the custody of the CEO. Up to a certain level, they are under the custody of the CEO. Above that level, those declarations are submitted to the Commission. Now, access to this declaration must follow the law. And this is what our procedure says, that if a declaration is requested for the officer in which the forms are under your custody, you must first, if the form is requested for, you must write to the officer, informing the officer that so and so would want to access your declaration. Once you have informed the officer will make his representation. So whether the officer says yes or no, whether the officer says that you need to release my form or no, the board will be guided by two standards in making its decision. Whether an officer says yes or no, the board will be guided by two standards. One of the standards is whoever is requesting, do they have a legitimate interest? Whoever is requesting, do they have a legitimate request? A legitimate interest? And two, is this request intended to achieve the objectives of Public Officers Ethics Act? Is that request, its intention to achieve the intentions of objectives of the Public Officers Ethics Act? If those two standards are achieved, then even if the officer says no, then you are obliged to release if those standards are achieved. From my experience at the Public Service Commission, these requests are usually made by investigative agencies, either EACC, DCI, KRA, Assets Recovery Authority. they make this request. And the Commission Board used those two standards to establish whether these forms should be released or not. And when these forms are released, there should be only a copy, a certified copy of those forms are the ones to be released. And this certification should be as per what the Evidence Act says. This certification should be as per what the Evidence Act says. You must remain with the original. Must remain with the original. So I would urge you as members of the board, what I've taken you through here is very brief. What I've taken you through here is very brief and is for purposes of you appreciating the roles of the Public Service Commission in issues of values and principles, and your role as the board of directors in values and principles, and briefly on matters of declaration of income, assets, and liabilities. If you want to be taken through in details by officers from the Public Service Commission, your CEO can write to the Commission, and those arrangements can be made. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. I think I introduced myself, but maybe I just want to ask my brother, did you need to devalue Nairobi by calling it Nairobi City Council instead of Nairobi County?
Thank you very much. My name is Masharia from Nita. I just want some clarification about this evaluation, particularly when it comes to ethnicity and gender. One, if I speak Luhya and I come from Kilifi, and I've never been to Luhya land all my life. Am I considered Luhya or Vijayana? The second one is about gender. When you're balancing gender, should gender be a subset of the ethnic balance, or is it taken separately? The final one is the historical resistance to unions in the public service and joining of trade unions. When you look at it against the PSC Act, most parastatals struggle with the PSC itself because one can complain to the PSC and the PSC can make a decision without even hearing the other side. And the Act itself, the way it's structured, does not give you an opportunity to appeal. And as government to government, we have this silent agreement that we don't take each other to court. So at times it becomes difficult. So maybe you can comment on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Abel Onas from Togo University, Omoli. I wanted just to seek clarification because you already said that when there are serious anomalies in an institution, then the board takes the brunt. But there's also another flip in the sense that the chief accounting officer, that is the CEO, is also there. So I just needed clarification because you find that in certain instances, you find that the board is maybe central. In certain instances, the CEO maybe bears the brunt. So I just needed that clarification.
Earlier on, we were talking about technical and ethical. Technical is easy to measure. You give an example of 20 and 80%. How do you measure the ethical? I'll give all the people that will say good things about you as like referees. Let's say you convicted and it's a case in court or something. How do you measure that ethical bit of the 20%?
Okay, thank you very much. My brother, I didn't intend to revalue the county government of Nairobi. When all these things were being done, it was City Council of Nairobi, isn't it? Or was it a county government at that time? It was City Council of Nairobi. So I'm using the facts that were there at that time, isn't it? Sawa. Now, with respect to hearing of the issues of this day, recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the Commission invited state corporations for a webinar, which was attended by your CEO and your head of HR. And I would request you to familiarize yourself with that document. It is called the State Corporation Discipline Regulations. State Corporation Discipline Regulation. The Public Service Commission has developed State Corporation Discipline Regulation, which provides for the appeals. So you will need to be taken through. If you are not be taken through, you will need to be taken through these instruments that I was talking about. The Public Service Commission has put in place to guide the human resource in the public service. Please, if we be taken through the Public Service Commission Act, the Public Service Commission regulations, we also have the Performance Management regulations. Now, recently there was a draft State Corporation Discipline regulations which were subjected to public participation. Get hold of that draft so that you can familiarize yourself with it. Now, in terms of accountability, there are levels of accountability, and it was explained here in the previous speaker about your level of accountability as a member of the board. So all these dynamics will depend on the levels of accountability. There was a slide that was shown here previously about your role and your level of accountability. Then in terms of evaluation of ethnicity, what Section 10 of Public Service Values Act says is proportionate representation. Proportionate representation in terms of ethnicity. So it means that as per the census of 2019, if the census of 2019, in that community, its population is 20%. So what it means that in terms of opportunities, its proportionate must also be what? 20%, irrespective of where you stay. Irrespective of where you stay. Your proportion in that census is 20%. It's 20%. Read Section 10 of Public Service Values and Principles Act. Read Section 10. And there are precedences which have also been set by the courts. Was it in 2012 or 2013 when there was an appointment in one of the commissions? The number 1 was left and number 4 was appointed. Isn't it? Senor, do you remember that? Number 4 was appointed and number 1 was left because of these issues of representation. And for your information, you need to come up with affirmative action programs. Affirmative action programs for inclusion of marginalized minority and persons with disability. So if you are looking at your Kilifi, you will be considered in that proportion of lawyers in the national census. Okay? Historical resistance, I think for trade unions, this is issue of trade unionism is a constitutional right for the officers, and within the framework of the law, we have unions which represent civil servants in various sectors. We have unions which represent civil servants in various sectors. Now, in terms of the questions on technical and ethical, you can come up with case studies. And from the interaction in those case studies, you'll be able to do your assessment. You come up with case studies, practical case studies, and from those case studies, those responses. Then, the other aspect, if you read through the Public Service Commission Act, there is also the aspect of vetting, using intelligence in other agencies to vet the officers. Read the Public Service Commission Act. It is laying emphasis on you as an appointing authority, you can use intelligence, you can corroborate, you can complement the case studies you ask with the confidential reports that you receive from state agencies. Iko sawa? Ground iko sawa, sindio? Thank you very much.
A few minutes interacting with one another, there is something that was raised by someone, I think it was Speaker, about the transition. You're coming in as new board members, and they are going members in some business, where minutes were produced at your own side. Then you are asked to sign. You know, this is a discussion that we can have. I don't know, I'm sure most of you have interacted with this kind of situation. Can somebody help us to say what we should do in this council? Just 5 minutes, and then we pray and go. I thought it was important so that as we coming in, we are taking over. Well, how should we behave? What should we do? You have 1 minute here, you never participated, and you have been asked to. Engineer, come on.
I think you can register. Perhaps there will be an allowance. You can come in the registration so that you don't have to pay this. Comes part of the law. Let's say it is NHIF. Even if you've been removed, you will be invited to finish off your business, sign off, even if it is the chairman or the board. You can come there so that if they don't, then you have a recourse to the law. We have that such situation. And you know, it's so abrupt. And then, of course, people are very unhappy. You have not finished your term, it's ended, and the staff may even rejoice you've been kicked out if they are with a very bad vote or whatever they assume or very hard. So I think it can be registered. That is the only solution. Otherwise, you can't beg, you can't.
Okay, that is one opinion, yes?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult for you to sign something you need for safety. Just like somebody writing a check and asking you to sign. My name is Arthur Kotek from Bear. I think it's very difficult for you to sign something you need for safety. You don't know anything about it. Like somebody writing a check and asking you to sign. So it's very unfair for you to ask you to sign. Maybe the CEO was part of the previous board can sign for. But the new board members, if they are not aware of what happened, it's very unfair to ask you to sign.
And people have been ceremonial is dismissed in the afternoon. They were somewhere and they just received the news. A new director has been issued and they have been sacked. So you think they come back to say that?
You can use that sacking document to attach to the minutes. It's not signed, so these guys were sacked. As simple as that.
Okay, and that becomes your document. You know that's a working document.
Yes.
So you inherit that one, that becomes a document.
Yes.
The certificate together, it wasn't signed?
Yeah, the sacking notice can be attached to those minutes.
That's okay. It's a procedure. But now I'm asking, the minutes will become part of your documents as a new board member. Will you use those minutes to transact business?
No.
Huh? So just putting it in the archives? Remember, business must continue. Someone else?
Chairman,
Yeah.
my name is Mark Vetro. I'm here courtesy of Kenya National Shipping Line, but I work in the National Treasury. I have a different opinion. One, these minutes have attended record. And as a new board member, you'll be interested in where the institution is. The first place you go is the last minute of that institution. And
And those last minutes have records of people who attended. Minutes are recorded because it's a government process of transacting board activities. You have come as a new chair on government assignment. Part of government assignment is to act as a chair that time. This is my view. This is something that is a process. It's a procedure that has been made. And because these minutes have people who attended that discussion, and because it is in public record that he is a new board, he will be chair. What I will do is to record in that day's proceedings of the action you did, signing those minutes. It's like a case where you have joined an institution as a CEO and you get a letter from PSC. You are a new CEO 1 week and you have a letter from PSC. Would you say that this letter should be directed to XYZ, the former CEO? No. You will go there because you are the CEO. That invitation is for CEO, President XY. But in the engagement with the PSC, in their wisdom, if they will be needed to call the previous CEO and to make say the previous board, that decision will be made. And they will come. But you as a CEO, as a board member, you have nothing to fear to execute government process from where you get it. That's my picture. Thank you. Is that authoritative enough? Many hands now coming up.
Yes, my name is Ojala, Chair of Youth and Power. I think what we're discussing here is very important, and in my view, it's the responsibility of governments to manage the transition. It should not be thrown to the new chair coming in. Just consider a craft secretary having known that the previous board has been fired. And just one good minutes, even, put resolutions in favor of whatever is interested in. The risks are too high to come in and pick up something that might be irregular, fraudulent, or whatever. So in my opinion, the ball sits in the authorities.
How many more? Do you take? 2, 3?
Mike
Mike is here.
I think it is this one that we need to discuss very extensively because number one, a hard work is very important in any organization. Even if you are exiting, even if you are being sacked, even if you are being sacked, there should be a process of learning. A soft learning is important as far as I'm concerned. There should be, let's think of this, because this is something that is going to affect corporations, companies, whatever, boards, institutions. So even if you are going, let us have a hard work. We see even the heads of state, hard work, you are going. But they come back and they hard over. Hard over is very important. Myanmar finds a way of handing over whatever we are doing. There must be a way, mighty. We must look for a way of handing over. Not just
look for a way.
Look for a way. Yes.
You are talking about an ideal situation. Ideally that would happen. But I think the question that was raised, this thing has happened, nobody is there, you landed, and you found minutes. You are confronted with that in your first board meeting. These were minutes that were done. The discussion then in the last meeting, the board went and you were sitting here and you said the minutes. I think that was the question.
Chairman, I was actually, I wanted to ask the same question that you are raising. The issue is, if somebody has been sacked, someone has been sacked, has run away, sulking and unhappy, and is not available, you are left there. Will you just ignore? I thought it's important to sign for, but note that those who are not your units, sign for the former chair, and then but be noted. And we put on record that those who are not your units, and you are not responsible for what happened there. If there any monkey business that happened after the sacking of the former chairman.
You know what you are saying? You want to stop the other business and begin afresh. Is that what you are saying? But this cooperation must continue in the business. The board ended last one, and it's a continuation. You are coming in as a continuation of the board. Okay, if you can find a solution, because you know, this is brainstorming, eh? Because people will be found in a situation like this one, and you don't know how to react. So we are helping one another actually to figure out how to address a situation like this. And I think my brother there is because perhaps he found one. I think my brother here was saying something. So what do you want to do? Give us a solution now.
In the morning, we were told that we must sign those minutes before you leave the body. That is what we were told in the morning. But when you go for the board meeting, you make sure that you sign the minutes before you leave. My theory is, in case I find one which has not been signed, I think there will be no harm if we go to the matters arising in those minutes. And we see that whether we are dealing with everything which is in those minutes. I don't think there's any harm in reviewing the minutes you have done before. We can pick it at that point and discuss before we start.
Well, I think we should end it there. You know, some people think how you handle a situation like that when it comes to the lands of your desk, and you handle it without putting yourself in trouble and ensuring that the business of the company continues. Yeah, to me, I would have thought.
Thank you, Chairman. Chair.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's at the back here.
Okay.
My name is Robin Goje from Lafan. And I think, Chair, the question you have asked is a new board has been appointed, the previous board has been fired. Some may have even gone to court because they have been fired acrimonious. So they usually expect them to come and cooperate with the new board. If we were to go the route that the minutes must be signed on the day of the meeting, that is not practical, Chairman. Because those minutes must be signed, must be typed, then circulated, then they are confirmed in the next or the subsequent board meeting. And that is why the first agenda is confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. So let's run away from the issue of doing the minutes the same day and signing them the same day. Now my proposal is this. Because boards operate in perpetuity, the previous board had an agenda that they discussed on that day. The new board has taken over, and the first thing they need to see is what was discussed in the previous meeting. Now once they have seen that, they can note that these were the discussions in the previous meeting, and then pick issues that they need to pick to discuss. They can value, uphold, or reject the discussions that were held in the previous meeting. And that is how we proceed. Thank you.
Beautiful. I think, yeah, okay. I'm joining the just the last one.
Chairman, before you go, Chairman, excuse me.
Okay, just there with that, I think people.
I think we are not looking for a formula that will apply to law cases. But remember, we were told that the actions you take when you are in the board follow you even after you have left, and whatever circumstances. Number one, it is in your interest who has left, whether you are being taken to court or not. If you are required to sign those minutes to confirm the actions you took when you were there, it's in your interest to do that. if that is not the case, the new board coming, because we are state corporations, whatever other name we are calling there, and we have a principle. That matter can be retabled and rediscussed by the new board. The decisions which the outgoing board took can be either validated or not validated by the incoming board, but there must be a transition. It's a responsibility that the outgoing, and it's a joint responsibility in my view, of the outgoing and the incoming, so that the business, we were told that a state corporation is an investment. So that must be continued. And you have a principal who can guide you how to go about this matter, which was not signed for, but was transacted before the board was held out or whatever.
Okay, that's the last one there.
Thank you very much, Chair, for that. I think this morning, when
I thought you were still young, dossier, you can start.
When we're being taken through the State Corporations Act, there are three critical people who are members of the board. A representative from the National Treasury, the Parent Ministry, and the AG. And why are we assuming that the board that was there must have done bad things or illegal things? So the presence of this should be able to allow them to confirm that this reflects what was discussed in the last meeting. So you confirm and move forward. If there are issues that you are doubting in terms of either issues of integrity, then there is a process to do that. So for me, there is continuity and perpetuity in the operations of state corporations. So you can call that from Treasury, AG, or the Prime Ministry to be able to confirm. Maybe the CEOs are there, the corporation secretary. So we move forward. So I don't think it should be something that we should be overthinking so much as if we were regarding
Well, you never know whether what they discussed is there. But I want to buy, before I give it to the CBS here. See the idea, my brother there, he's a student me. I was of the same view. But now, you guys are different viewers. I was of the same view that if we were to go back there to those minutes, I must know what was happening. I can't you can't just bring me minutes here and say this was discussed, this set as a true picture of the deliberations of that day. How do I know? I will not say myself. I think I will be asking, look, if we are to sign these minutes, can you bring the papers that were discussed in the last meeting? I mean, what stops us from asking for the last papers? Are we back by any law? The discussion, the papers that were discussed by the previous board, we cannot discuss, especially with the present minutes. I'm thinking we can actually go for those. I say, present the papers are fresh again to us. They are new board, we can't sign these minutes until we discuss this. That's my opinion. And everybody that has given there, so.
Could have been acted on. 1 second, just 1 second. Okay. The trouble here is that if a previous board met and then decided that certain actions should be taken, okay, and those actions were taken by management and implemented, even before the next meeting when the minutes would have been signed. So the action is already taken. Because it's not as if the board makes a decision and then you wait until they meet the next time to confirm the minutes before the action is taken. So they met, decided, A, B, C, D, take that action. And then that action was taken. And then they were fired. But then the action is already taken and the minutes have not been signed. But the action is already taken.
You know that is not the problem. The problem is not whether what they discussed or acted upon or not. The question is signing the minutes. But that was the question. That was the concern. Should you or should you not sign the minutes where you are?
You can't sign because what they decided you don't agree with.
You can't sign because what they decided you don't agree with. They already decided.
But the minutes
minutes are there, but you cannot sign it. You can't sign it because you don't agree with the decision they made. Yeah. Well, what was done was contrary to the minutes.
You are in the board of the National Health Insurance Fund.
Right.
Something like that will happen, and you want to continue. And you will not sign the minutes. You are signing it or not?
I wouldn't sign.
So then there was no business.
But the action was already taken by management.
But then we consider that there was no business because the minutes were not signed.
So the question to start is, between the board meetings, should management not take action? Should they wait for minutes to be signed, confirmed and signed before they take action?
That's another one.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very interesting topic. But I think the issue we are discussing is this. Because minutes are normally signed on the basis of a proposal and a second. The people who attended that meeting, it is not as simple as just raising a pen and signing, whether you agree with it or not. And so, in that kind of a situation, because it's an extreme situation, I really like what FCS Justin was saying. If, for example, I was in a board that was stuck, for instance, with my colleagues, and we left minutes on the table, of course, it's not easy to go back and sign them, because the relationship is normally negative. You don't want to be seen looking at the building, by the public. There are so many things which you want to do. And some of the issues that caused you a sacking could be some of the issues in the minutes. I think for purposes of continuity, because there is no way to propose it, actually the chair with permission. Chairman, you cannot sign minutes unless they have been proposed. Second, if you sign, sir, and the other members come to deny it, you will be left solo. And this one will be a big challenge in the eyes of the law. So the best solution, because this is a situation which is difficult, the best solution is probably to take note, just take note, pass a resolution that we take note that the previous board had met, and they had minutes which have been provided by the corporation secretary. They need to be that the corporation secretary is still around. They need to also be that the CEO is around. So that it becomes just a working document. If there are some things which have been executed on the basis of the signed documents, because this is normal. This is normal. You don't wait for the minutes to be signed so that execution can be done. That should also be taken note of. And you'll be playing safe as a board. And then from there you can start rolling on. I like what has been proposed by one of the members regarding the question of legislating that maybe the regulations, and I think such corporations currently probably can take up this transition. There is need to come up with some legislation regarding the transition, because it's a very common phenomenon, especially in the public sector. But that's what I would say. Signing minutes is not a question of just raising a finger and opening your pen and signing. Let there be someone who was in the meeting who says that I propose that the minutes are a true record of the business that we undertook that day, and I hereby propose, and their name is given. And then another one, seconds also in a similar manner. I think those are the comments I could make. And
the matters arising, mind you, it's not just the last minute.
Yes.
You have carried business from the past. You're not just signing the last action.
For sure. So take note of them, and then maybe in terms of administration, you can require the management to give you a briefing. And that briefing forms part of the transition, because we may not be able to recall those other people from outside there. But if there are issues, you can be sure they come back. If there are issues, they come back to the court, and it will be really in the interest of those people who left to make sure that what remained on record is really what they have discussed, so that they can be able to defend themselves. it's a trivial issue, but I think it's interesting. And I want the issue with your commission itself, that the corporation secretaries who are assisted here, I don't know how many they are. When you see them, where are you? Where are they? Can you please be upstanding? Please be upstanding. Now I want to speak like I am the chairman because I'm holding brief for the chairman. You have a duty. And all the members who are here, how many are there? Members of this institute. This is your business, really. I think you need to readjust a professional standard and a professional analysis on matters minutes and many other governance issues. This is one of them. This one being one of them. Minutes don't take them for granted. There are foreseen evidence that that is the position, and the court takes them on the face what? Face value. You will take a risk because there is a possibility that they will change. You know that came up, isn't it? There is a possibility that they will change. Remember, we were told 70% of us, given an opportunity, we can misbehave. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? Yes. Yes, given an opportunity, we can misbehave. And that transition period is a very critical moment. Thank you very much, members of the ministry. So, yes, discuss these things and guide your vote. Because these men and women, many of them have read medicine, others have read engineering. They calculate for the last 4 decimal points. And they are good in that. These are issues which are so soft. Please guide on them. Even the lawyers who are inside here, who are not members of the institute, please refer to the jurisprudence